So, when you jump in your car and you decide that you want to take your family for a vacation or you want to go somewhere and you drive on a highway, you ever think about the bridges? Or you fly to go somewhere or take a train? Do you ever wonder about the track that you're on or the bridges that it crosses? So let's take a quick look at it and see what our infrastructure looks like here in the United States and probably similar in other parts of the world. In 2007, we had this, Minneapolis had an I-35 westbound bridge collapse. The bridge was constructed in '64, opened in '67. In '06, it showed some issues, and the state began to conduct some repairs. The collapse caused 13 deaths, 145 injuries, and the bridge handled 140,000 private vehicles daily and 5,000 commercial vehicles daily. The bridge collapsed. 2003, we had a cascading power failure. I don't know if any of you remember this or not. The power failure was disrupted to 8 states. It was never supposed to happen. It began in Ohio and Michigan with a transmission instability, which caused further instability in the region. By 2 and 3, several large transformers were tripped and affected 50 million people, disrupted 911 communications, shut down transportation systems, disrupted utilities. This was never supposed to happen again because it had happened almost 20 years or prior to this date. So what are the impacts of these things? You think about the social impacts, disruption to daily life. You say, yeah, it's a big deal. It's not a big deal. Yeah, that's because it's somebody else's life. But if you're sitting in that traffic for an hour and a half to 2 hours to go around because a bridge is closed, you all of a sudden get a different perspective of it. We're dependent upon our infrastructure. If you think about it, our electricity, our gas comes through pipelines from all over the United States. Water comes from far distances. If we're in Saudi Arabia, to get to the capital city, they pump the water almost 2,300 miles from the coast. That's from, think about it, that's about from New York City to Disney World in Florida. And that's just water being pumped every day, that distance, to meet the needs of the city. That's an idea of, having that pipeline break would be a significant disaster for that community. However, we do have the American Society of Civil Engineers. They do look at all of our things, modes of transportation. They look at our critical infrastructure, and guess what? We're not too good. They've graded aviation at a D, bridges at a C, dams are at a D, drinking water D minus. Of course, this is like an average across the United States. Energy D plus. Hazardous waste, look at these numbers. Solid waste, C+. Wow. That's our highest grade that we get for our critical infrastructure here in the United States. You're going to see more of this, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview. So, what do we need to do? We need to increase the federal leadership in infrastructure. During the 20th century, the government led to build highways across our nation. If you really want to know where this comes from, you have to look at Eisenhower, who was a 5-star general in the World War II. And when he arrived in Germany, Germany had built the Autobahn. They built the Autobahn with the idea of being able to move their military anywhere they needed to go in Germany. And so Eisenhower proposed the interstate highway system here in the United States for exactly the same reason, to be able to use the military. Today, we hop on the highway, we hop off, we never think about why it was started. And that most of it was built in the 50s and 60s. A few repairs here and there, but it's pretty old. You think about our water treatment. How well we treat our sewage, and where does the sewer water end up? Where do we put it? How do we get rid of that water? Many of these water treatment facilities are built in floodplains. Well, guess what happens when it floods? All that contaminated water gets washed out into the sound, into a river, into an ocean, and it destroys everything. Here we have, this high-speed train that runs between Boston and Washington, D.C., and we say, wow, isn't that modern? We have this great train. Well, it's been running for almost 15 years now, and so nothing new has been put on once the Acela was actually operated. We need to continue what we started 15 years ago and advance rail service. Address life cycle costs and ongoing maintenance. Here's infrastructure systems must account for initial construction, operation, maintenance, environmental concerns, safety, and other costs reasonably anticipated through the life of the project. Here's a little known fact. If you have a car on a highway, every car that passes on the highway, let's say, does X amount of damage. Well, if you have a trailer truck on the highway, every trailer truck does the same amount of damage that 10,000 cars do to the same highway. So one car driving down the road followed by a tractor-trailer truck is the same as, that would be equivalent to 10,100 or 10,001 cars driving down the road. So we don't understand that, we use trucks to transport our commerce all around the country, but it does a tremendous amount of damage to our roads. So increase and improve the infrastructure. It is an investment because it is for the future, for keeping us moving. Public assistance, I just want to talk about this briefly, where financial aid can come for infrastructure and utility restoration. The federal government has provided extensive aid prior to disasters. Some communities now they're so worried about the utilities that they're actually coming in now and changing the telephone poles, upgrading the sewer system, upgrading the water systems to try to make them a little bit more resistant to disasters, to make them last a little bit longer. As an example, sometimes it's the simplest thing that could make a difference. Sewer systems are very susceptible, especially if they're along a beach. Water comes along, floods over the top of it. There's air in the sewer system. The manhole covers, which weigh about 90 pounds, will actually come off, be lifted by the air pressure, and then water and sand fills up the sewer system. That sewer system is out of service. It's dead. Before the storm arrives, Public Works sends a truck down there with a welder and welds all of the manhole covers down. Guess what? Sewer system stays effectively in service. So we've learned a lot, and we need to apply those to make our infrastructure last longer. As you watch some of these other videos and you read the material in this chapter, I think you'll get a good understanding of what we can do to try to begin working on our infrastructure to make sure it's there after a storm.